I think it's important for you to go into the day with some intention. Otherwise, you wind up playing just whack-a-mole all day. Hey, what's up, everybody? And welcome to Shit Trainers Say. It's a weekly podcast brought to you by the trainers of Catalyst Strength and Functional Nutrition. My name is Jim Adams. I am the owner of Catalyst, and I'm here with my right hand, Debbie Roman. She's the general manager at Catalyst. And these are conversations that we have every day with our clients that we thought that everybody else could benefit from too. So if you get something out of this conversation, and we hope that you do, please let us know that. And if you don't, also let us know that. If you think we're full of shit, let us know that, and we'll be happy to, do some more research or change our opinion, or take a deeper dive somewhere along those lines. But anyway, welcome to the show, Deb.
Thanks.
And Deb,
Laura calls me the glue.
The glue. Yes, I'm the owner. She is the glue. That's so true. And that's a good title for you. And you're at home because you're excited because you got a new puppy. You want to introduce everybody to the
Rocky, new puppy. Say hi, babe. Look at that face.
I love you. All right. So it's myself, Deb, and Rocky on the show today. And today I wanted to talk about mindset. And I know there's a lot of, talk out there about mindset, but I really do think it really is important. I think it's important for you to go into the day with some intention. Otherwise, you wind up playing just whack-a-mole all day. You know what whack-a-mole is, Deb?
No, but I think I know what you mean.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So I think it's really important to go in it with like some clear priorities and some clear tasks for the day that are prioritized. Otherwise, you just kind of run all over trying to stomp out fires and wind up catching fire yourself. And I was listening to this podcast, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a monologue here, Deb, so forgive me. But I was listening to this podcast the other day called The Science of Success. And this guy was interviewing this neuroscientist talking about neuroplasticity and learning. And what he talked about was that what he says, the neurons that fire together wire together. And so you can hardwire your brain, sometimes consciously, intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, to look for either good or bad influences. And so we all know that one person who always sees the negative. They tend to be the negative Nancys or the negative Nelsons, in everybody's lives, because they're always seem to be a little bit pessimistic and always seeing the bad in everybody. And vice versa, we have the opposite of that. We have the happy Nancys and the happy Nelsons who always see the positive, always see the bright side.
You always want to be around them too.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. And that's contagious. And so you want to spend more time with them. But the question becomes, how did their brains become wired to always see the negative or the positive? And if you're one or the other, can you rewire your brain the other way? And he's this neuroscientist, and I apologize, I can't remember his name, but he said, absolutely, you can. So he said the way that you do that is that, say if you are, let's say you're struggling with losing weight or you're eating, let's just use that. And he said that, well, let's just talk about negative experiences. So say you're always feel like you're seeing the negativity in the world, and you have that confirmation bias, kind of like when you buy a new car, then all of a sudden you see that car everywhere, and it's called a confirmation bias. And so he said, in order to rewire your brain, what you have to do is get new neurons firing together so that they wire together. And the way you do that is you seek out positive experiences or the positivity in a situation, and or if you come along something that affects you positively, what you do is you slow time down. We all have those times where time slows down, where like a second seems to take a minute. And he said, what you need to do is be intentional about that and creating that moment or those moments in your life,
Mhm.
and be intentional about seeking them out, because at first it's going to seem weird to your brain because your brain is hardwired not to see them. So it's going to take some effort and it's going to seem out of the normal context for you to seek those times out. But when you do, then you have to be intentional about creating those long moments. And he said, take in all the sensory input. You know, what is it? What is, how does it make you feel inside? What does it look like? What is the texture? How does it smell? You know, all of the smells, all of these things, because we all have like that one song that when we hear it, it triggers a very specific memory. And so it's the same thing because that's how your brain works. So you have to be able to intentionally seek out those moments. And when you're in that moment, slow it down and be intentional and create that type of moment so that you can take in all of that sensory input so that those neurons spend more time firing together. And therefore, it makes it easier for them to start wiring together. And that's how you can rewire your brain and your thinking or the lens with which you view the world. And it's not going to be like a switch. You're not going to do it once. And it's like working out. You're not going to work out once and say, hey, look at my great body. You know, I put so much effort into it. No, you're going to have to, it's going to have to become something you do consistently over time in order to start to see the results in your life. And it's like, it's a bit like taking a multivitamin. You know, if you miss one day, you're like, yeah, I don't feel any different. But when you're 80 and you've been taking multivitamins your whole life, then you're like, oh, yeah, I'm doing better than that other 80-year-olds. Maybe, you know, that multivitamin had something to do with it after all. So it's just that small little consistency over time that makes the changes happen. And for
Yeah.
me, the thought that popped in my head is that sounds a lot like meditation. Now, not everybody's up for meditation. I get it. And if you're not, that's fine. But I know that I meditate. I know Deb meditates. And it's for me, it's a good way for me to slow my mind down. And that's harder than that, much, much harder than I thought it would be when I first started. I'm like, oh, I just quiet my mind. But my mind was noisy. It was like a obnoxious little brat, you know, that wouldn't shut up, you know. And so I had to, you know, again, work at that skill and work at those neurons firing together so that they were wired together. Now I can drop into that quiet space much more
Yeah.
easier. But also it allows me to be proactive in my day and in my life instead of reactive to things. Because I establish clear priorities, like I said, go into the day intentionally with intention and intentionally seeking out certain outcomes or results or tasks. And when I can stay focused like that, I can cut out all the noise. It allows me to get off my monkey mind. So where I can just focus on here and say, oh, there's something shiny over there. Let me go check that out. Oh, what was I doing? Oh yeah, this is my task. Oh, let me go over here. Oh no, this is my task. So it just helps me stay a little bit more focused, brings my anxiety level down a little bit. And then at the end of the day, I actually feel like I accomplished something.
Right.
So, and I know like I said, I went on that long dialogue, but you want to jump in here, Deb, with anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think that I don't know, thinking a little bit like going back in everybody's lives. I can't think of anybody who like nobody really teaches you about your feelings. And I feel like we get used to block them with food or entertainment or drugs or social media or whatnot. So
Or
next
other
thing you know,
people?
or other people, and you put yourself in situations where you might be the victim or you might be always helping the victims because that makes you feel like you're a better person. And we are always trying to get that external validation, and next thing you know, you don't even know who you are, or you don't even know what you like. You don't even know how to control, quote unquote, control your feelings. And I think that um, it's a, when you do something every day, like going back to the working out example, when you do something every day, you're not going to see a change. But when you look back a year ago, you'll see the difference. So I think people forget about how important consistency is, and how we don't even think about it. We are expecting something to change like that. And I think that if we really focus on just being a little better every day, great things are, accomplished. It makes me think also a little bit about learning a new language when you mentioned the neurons in your brain. And it's really, if anybody has tried to learn a language, you understand how frustrating it could be to try to think in another language and translate everything you want to say. And then one day you wake up and you speak the language. So consistency is what makes you learn and change and grow. And we forget about that. We are really attached to the short term goals and the instant gratification. Um, but it really reminded me of learning a new language, because you study, you memorize, you try to speak, you try to understand, you get frustrated, you feel like you're not making progress. That's what I mean. And then next thing you know, you're able to communicate, you're able to understand, and then you don't even have to translate anything. It just becomes second nature. And I think that when you treat everything like that, you know, whatever it is, fitness, emotions, relationships, even your own personal relationships, like you might be on a rough path with your significant other, but you focus on the little victories every day. I think it makes a huge difference. So I really like to encourage people to focus on your small victories every single day. They will add up. So that's what
I agree with that. And then I was recording another podcast yesterday with a guy who owns a gym in Columbia, Missouri, and he has a behavioral scientist on his staff that helps with lots of things. Helps him with hiring the right person, with training the people, and also with client accountability. And what she said, what the behavioral scientist said, she said that what most trainers don't do, and I thought she was dead on with this, is they don't, like when we talk to clients about nutrition, we say, oh, here's what you should eat. Boom, we're done talking about nutrition. But a lot of trainers don't get down into, because whatever behavior you're doing, whatever you're eating, or nutrition, or whatever it is fulfilling some kind of emotional need.
right.
So you can't just ask somebody, you can't ask someone to take that out of their life and leave that void, so that emotional need is no longer getting met, because they're going to meet it somehow, like Deb said, so what you have to do is replace it with something more positive and work with them first to become cognizant that what emotional need is this fulfilling for me, so that they become aware of that. And then they can work with you on something to replace that, so they can still have that emotional need met, but also reach their other goals as well, which I
Yeah.
think is really important. And then I know, Deb, you're reading or read the book on habits. I also read a book called Atomic Habits, and he talks about the habit loop. And he said you can't eliminate a habit, you have to replace it, but you have to be intentional about it. And I read the book several years ago, and you just recently read it, so it's fresh in your mind. You wanna speak to the listeners about that?
You point out that like 90% of the things you do in life are habits.
Mm-hmm.
And you may or may not be aware of them. But it gives you power to understand what your habits are, the good and the bad. And the main thing that you need to understand is what's your trigger. If you understand your trigger, you are going to be able to replace the action or the habit. versus like, I don't know why I do this. Like, I don't know why I just go and eat chocolate right before bed. Yeah, you do. You just don't know you do. So yeah, it's a really good book. It's really interesting. I think everybody should read it if you want to break bad habits.
Yeah. And I hate the term bad habits and good habits. They're just habits, right?
Yeah, at the end of the day, yeah.
And it's like, what, you have to think, are these habits getting me where I want to be? And
Right.
if they're not, then you need to change them. I don't think they're
That's
inherently
true.
bad or good, but
Yeah.
I just think if the direction in which you want to go has changed or your goals have changed, then your
It
habits have to
does.
change with them. Absolutely. In the and you said like 90% of what we do is habits, and I agree with that because that's how higher learning takes place.
Hmm.
Because you get what they call rote memory, and I know everybody, I've done it where I'm driving to some destination that may be the exact same route I take to go home every day, but it's just a couple of different changes, a couple of different turns than what I normally take to go home because it's close to my home. And I'll be driving and just thinking. And then before I know it, I'm pulling up at my home and I'm like, oh, I didn't mean to go here. But that rote memory just takes me there. And
Yeah.
the reason that we do that is that if you had to use all of your brain's processing power to like, okay, I got to lift my right foot up and then move it forward, put it down. Now my left foot. If you had to think about each one of those movements, just walking, you wouldn't be able to do anything else other than focus on walking. So what your brain does is that puts that back in the background, kind of like software that runs in the background on your computer. It just runs in the background and allows you to do all of these tasks that you do all the time. And then
Yeah.
those become habit loops. And so that's how habits are formed because we as humans have evolved to have a higher level of thinking. But that's part of the reason why we can have, because then we can start building on those rote memories.
Yeah.
But again, you have to be really intentional. And I say to take the time to do some self exploration and say, is this habit getting me what I want out of life? And
Right.
if it's not, then you need to replace it,
Hmm.
plain and simple.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of books out there that can help you with that. I highly recommend The Power of Habits that I read. And then you have The Power of Habits, or is it Habits is a different
It
book?
was Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits. Yeah. Yeah. That's a new one. Okay. So check those out if you're curious. Or if you want more information or want to chat with us, you can reach out to us. Just go to info@catalyststl.com. info@catalyststl.com. You can also call us at 314-457-3474, 314-457-3474, or you can contact us through the website catalyststl.com. And if you have any topics or any questions that you want us to answer or tackle, we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
So until next time, myself, Deb, and I always call him Cracker. What's his name again?
Rocky.
Rocky. Bye, Rocky. We'd say we hope you are well. Bye-bye.
Bye.